Game 3 of the opening round between the Golden State Warriors and the Denver Nuggets is here. The tip-off is tonight. This time, though, they are in the Mile High City, and I have with me Kevin Danna, the voice of the Santa Cruz Warriors. You're full of insights. You're full of knowledge. Are you ready to talk some shop and hype this thing up? Let's go for a 3-0 sweep. 3-0 sweep is what I'm hoping for. Are you ready? You hyped? You good?
Let's dance, Cyrus.
Let's dance, baby. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. You can follow Kevin Danna on Twitter at Kevo408. And you can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Twitter at DogSurfRoadshow. Game 3 is here, Kevin. I first want to apologize for the delay in bringing you back. I just lost track of time. That's the only reason why I haven't asked you sooner to bring you back on. You're always welcome here, man. And you got a solid fan base. People understand and respect your talents. Give us your insights on this series so far. They're up 2-0. For the people like you and me who know this team, this is not a surprise. But to a lot of people who are casuals, who just don't understand this game as well as you and I do, maybe, it's a surprise to them. I'm shocked at that. But give us your insights, and what are you seeing heading into tonight's Game 3?
Well, here are kind of my two knee-jerk reaction thoughts. My first one is always, the series isn't over yet. And it doesn't matter how good a team plays at home. Like, you still got to go on the road, and that could change a lot of things. I remember, and don't ask me why I know why this comes to my mind, but the 99 Eastern Conference first-round series between the Atlanta Hawks. I was a big Atlanta Hawks fan. This is why I remember this series. Steve Smith was one of my favorite players growing up. Took on the Detroit Pistons in a 4-5 matchup. The home team won by double digits every game. I remember the Hawks won the first two games of that series. That was back when it was a best of 5. I'm like, oh, they're going to sweep the Pistons. Well, then the Pistons just kicked their ass in games 3 and 4, and then the Hawks needed to win in game 5. So, like, this isn't over yet. Like, the Nuggets could very easily win games 3 and 4, and then they're coming back, and everyone's like, well, what happened? Well, it was a change of scenery that happened. Like, Denver, not this year, but traditionally, they are a very good home team. They actually had a better road record this year. They were 25-18 on the road this year, 25-16, and then 23-18 at home. But usually that's flipped. That being said, I don't think the Nuggets have a prayer in winning at Chase Center. So, like, no matter how well the Nuggets play at home, and they could beat the Warriors by 30 in games 3 and 4, they could beat them by 60 in game 6. I still have full confidence that the Warriors would win in 7, just because at Chase Center, when the Warriors at home and they get on those benders with the new death lineup, like, it just plays into the crowd perfectly. And I don't think the Nuggets can overcome that. So those are my two knee-jerk thoughts that, all right, while it was a great first 2 games, like, the Nuggets could very easily protect home court. But even if they do, the Warriors, at worst, are going to win this series in 7.
That's fair. It's weird bringing up the Hawks Pistons. That's a total, like, time machine trip there. And you're saying that series stuck out to you because of the fact that the home teams were constantly winning, and who won that series? Who won the 5th game?
So the Hawks won in 5 because it was 2-2-1 back when the first round was best of 5 series. And I bring that up because I was a Hawks fan before I was a Warriors fan. I didn't become a Warriors fan until they drafted Jamison, or at the end of the 98 season when they won the last 3 seasons to save that pick that year, because otherwise they were going to lose their pick. They had to, like, not finish it was like not top 3 protected. I forget exactly the stipulations, but I remember getting hyped to Bob Fitzgerald, like, explaining after they won their final 3 games that they just improved their chances of securing, like, their first round pick. And then they got Jamison, and then I was a fan from there. But, like, I like the Hawks because of TBS growing up and Mookie Blaylock, Kevin Willis. Yeah. I was an Atlanta Braves fan before anything, so I took all the Atlanta teams. But I remember that because I'm like, oh, the Hawks just kicked the Pistons' ass in games 1 and 2. They're going to cakewalk into the second round. 12-year-old me, like, didn't realize how big of an issue or how big of a factor home court advantage could play. Just a change of scenery, and it doesn't matter like how good a team looks at home. Like it could completely flip on its head when you just change the location of the game.
That's fair, and it's really fascinating. I completely missed the fact, and I'm so glad you stated that. In regard to the Nuggets' home versus road record, I mean, it's really shocking to me that they had a better road record.
Yeah.
And that leads to this. For those watching on YouTube, I'm going to share this little infographic. For those listening at home, the infographic has pictures of Mike Malone and Nikola Jokić with the attribution stating from Mike Malone, quote, "I imagine this place is going to be half filled with Warriors fans," unquote. There are reports out there that there are seats remaining for this game tonight. It's not sold out, and that there could be very well a strong Warriors contingent being in the Mile High City tonight. And that arena is fascinating because they do have this huge mural, as I'm sure you know, near the visitors' locker room. All the players see it. That states that is 5,280 feet above sea level. You're literally a mile high in the air. Just to remind the players, oxygen is not as plentiful here. The air is thinner. But it will be wild if we hear a lot of Warriors fans in that arena tonight. Wouldn't surprise me either. I mean, this is reminiscent of, the mid 2010s Warriors teams, where everywhere they went, they got kind of like the Beatles, Michael Jordan rockstar treatment. And all it takes is just a flip of a switch, a few games, and Stephen Curry once again is being revered. Now we got the Poole Party. Give me your thoughts on Jordan Poole. This is someone you've seen, communicated with, dealt with firsthand. Given just a year and a half ago, maybe less than that, he was playing in Santa Cruz for the G League team, and most people attribute that as being the primary catalyst for his turnaround. What are you thinking and seeing with the Poole Party these days? Is he's now suddenly being recognized as as one of the game's premier players?
Yeah, I mean, I have really enjoyed watching Jordan Poole ascend to the heights where he has gotten to. And I remember his summer league 2019. He wasn't shooting it very well at all. I remember talking with Johnny West, who had Jerry West's son, who's in the Warriors front office, and who obviously played a role in drafting Poole. He's like, I'm not worried about his shooting percentages here at Summer League. It's just about like getting the reps and just kind of seeing how he plays the game. He was high. He was very high on Jordan Poole then. And like that kind of resonated with me that like, all right, it might not look great at first, but like you could see that something could be brewing there. And his first year in the NBA wasn't good statistically speaking. But after he came back from Santa Cruz, his rookie season, he played 3 games with Santa Cruz, played very well in those 3 games. He started to play significantly better. And over his last 13 to 20 games, I forget the exact number, but he really turned it up. And then in the double, kind of they had a mini camp in the COVID world, like for the Delete 8, as they call them, the 8 teams that didn't make the bubble. They could have a mini camp in like September and October. I did the scrimmage with Bob Fitzgerald, and he had a fantastic scrimmage in that game. And then the regular season comes by, doesn't get off to a good start. It was kind of padding his numbers in garbage time minutes, if you will. He was really kind of a garbage time killer. Then he gets sent to the G League again in the bubble. And he had some really good moments. Don't get me wrong. He was also second in the G League in turnovers per game. So if you want to talk about most improved, 13 months ago, Jordan Poole was second in the G League in turnovers per game at 4.5 turnovers per game. In addition to increasing his scoring average from 12 to 18 plus this year, he also nearly cut his turnovers from the G League in half to the NBA. Oof. Like from 4.5 turnovers per game in the G League to 2.5 turnovers per game in the NBA. That is a huge improvement. And all right, maybe he doesn't handle the ball as much in the NBA, but he's not a stand in the corner kind of guy.
No.
And also, he wasn't the only ball handler for Santa Cruz. They had Jeremy Lin and Nico Mannion. And of course, Golden State was invested in Nico Mannion as well because he was a draft pick. And Jeremy Lin, 9-year NBA veteran or whatever it was, like a really, really good player who knows handle the rock. So he was kind of one of 3 guys who was a ball handler for Santa Cruz and averaged 4.5 turnovers per game. And then in Golden State, when he only played 3, I think it was like 3 fewer minutes in the NBA this year than the G League last year, he nearly cut his turnovers in half. So I mean, Garland, Morant, Murray, fantastic seasons, statistically better seasons than Jordan Poole, but those guys weren't turning the ball over 4.5 times per game in the G League last year. I'll say that.
And I said this look, I want to ask a lot of questions and talk a lot about Jordan Poole. You brought up a million amazing points. I love it. And shame on every media member for not, at a minimum, making Jordan Poole a finalist for the Most Improved Player Award. And I said this before, and I'll say it again. If you're one of those media individuals, one of those so-called media professionals, out yourself. At least publicly say that you are one of those individuals, so we could at least find out the why of it. Because look, you're right. John Morant, Garland, the kid from the Spurs, who I'm DeJounte Murray.
Yep.
Fantastic seasons statistically. I mean, these were if we were voting for an award that didn't have the word improved in it, I get it. But you brought up these fantastic counterpoints, which is that Jordan Poole just a year ago was struggling. He was on the verge of being out. I mean, his career was in borderline jeopardy. We're going to talk about Jordan Poole a lot more in a second here, but first got to give love to betonline.net. They're your number one source for all your betting stats and sports information. I'm in fact on betonline.net right now, where the Warriors are 2.5-point favorites on the road with the over under 223.5. They've covered the spread the first two games. Any thoughts on tonight's line? Warriors on the road -2.5.
I think if I made a prediction on lines or anything like that, I might get in trouble. So for the sake of my career, because unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because I really would love to gamble on sports, I cannot do so. So maybe fair. When I get fired or I retire, whichever happens first. Hopefully neither happen anytime soon. But that will be the first thing I do when I'm at 80. I'll go to Reno, get to a sports book, and just play the ponies and bet on NBA games all day. But hopefully that's 50 years from now.
Oh, playing the ponies is so much fun. I lived in San Diego for 4 years and was at Del Mar Racetrack on the reg. You're never going to see a more fascinating scene, a more interesting congruence of the hoity-toities and the utter degenerates, all for some reason in symbiotic bliss. It is fascinating. But look, BetOnline, you can find all your latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline is where the game starts.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast, nightly recaps of every NBA game with analysis from our local experts. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. You can follow Kevin Danna, the voice of the Santa Cruz Warriors, and sometimes the Golden State Warriors, on Twitter at Kevo408. You recently actually were the play-by-play broadcaster for the Warriors on their last road trip of the season. Love that. I love that they're giving you those opportunities. Well-deserved, sir. Let's talk some more Jordan Poole here, just because I guess my first question to you is, and I'm waiting to hear someone actually having the ability to answer this, because there might not be an answer. Have you ever seen another player in the history of this game have this level of a meteoric rise, where just a year ago they were in the G League, and now we're talking about this guy possibly earning $100+ million deal? He might be one of the most important players on a world championship team. Have you ever seen anyone come close to something like this?
Yeah, I'm racking my head. The closest recent example I could think, and this guy didn't play in the G League, and you could see the talent his rookie year, but he was very raw, was Giannis, right? He averaged 6 a game his rookie year, and it took him a little bit to get going. But once he got going, boom, he really took off. I need to, that's a good question, because I do want to marinate on that. And I feel like I might be able to come up with an answer. I mean, Chris Middleton's another guy who was assigned to the G League, and I think it was either him or Rudy Gobert, who was the first guy who played in the G League as an assignment player, who made an all-star team. It was either Gobert, and I actually did want to Gobert's first G League games when he got assigned to the Bakersfield Jam. And they kind of took it to Santa Cruz. So it's, Chris Middleton, Rudy Gobert, just because they played in the G League. Pascal Siakam's another guy, actually. He was like a G League Finals MVP in 2017, and then 2 years later was like a huge piece of an NBA title team with the Toronto Raptors. So those are the three that come to mind. And just I do want to kind of fine-tune a couple of my points regarding Jordan Poole in the G League last year. I mentioned the 4.5 turnovers per game. He was also really damn good in the G League, right? Like, he was clearly like one of the top guys in the G League. I think he was named third team all G League last year. I can't quite remember, but he averaged 22, 23 points a game. Was big for sure. It's just that he made some young mistakes, right? Like, my thing, I would say he was talented enough last year to win you an NBA game, and would be young enough inexperienced enough to make mistakes in the G League that at times kind of put Santa Cruz at risk of losing games. Now, he never cost them a game necessarily, but he did make some tough plays down the stretch. It's all, but I love hot and cold guys. And I think like a hot and cold guy, which is what Jordan Poole kind of was until March, where he's just kind of become this consistent, dominant threat that the Warriors have. I do think like there is a place for a hot and cold guy on a team a la J.R. Smith. Like, I think guys like that add a lot of value who just don't have a conscience, who just feel like every shot they put up is going to go in. And I have always loved that about Jordan Poole. Off the court, great dude. Really enjoyed. I mean, I haven't talked with him a whole lot, but it's been nothing but pleasant interactions with him. And then B, I would like to push back on the notion that he was maybe playing his way out of the league. And I know Draymond Green said that, and that's why that's kind of gotten legs. I don't necessarily think that because you get assigned to the G League that you're on your way out. His last game before he got sent to the bubble, he had like 16 or 18 points against the Detroit Pistons, and the guys on the bench were saying, cancel the flight, like saying, don't send him to Orlando. He's good where he is. So I thought it was just kind of a fine-tuning point for him. I've seen plenty of guys get assigned to the G League, and it's not the end of their world. Now, I've seen guys get assigned to the G League, and it is the end of their NBA career, but that's not the case for everyone. I don't think it was the case for Jordan Poole. I just thought he needed a little more seasoning, and he is really taking it and ran.
Yeah, and I say that more so in terms of perception, because you're right. I'm not basing this on anything behind the scenes in terms of what was said, and I did catch that Draymond quote, but I mean, I don't think anyone was picturing him now, earning his way as a starting role, as someone who, as you mentioned, finally kind of overcame the one hurdle he had, which was consistency. He wasn't able to put it together on a night-by-night basis. He was streaky to a certain extent. But then the last 19 games of the regular season, 18 of the 19, he scored 20 or more points, including a 17-game winning streak where he scored 20 or more points. I mean, that's a phenomenal feat if you're an NBA player. And that one game where he didn't score 20, he had 19, but had 11 assists because he started developing his handles and his passing skills, and that responsibility of being the point guard on the team with Steph out. There's nothing but about this kid you can't like, in my opinion, right now. It's incredible. Why do you think, and I'm going to have another stumper of a question for you when we come back, and maybe you can answer it, but there's two I've been asking people that I'm just getting shrugs and kind of like lost looks when I ask. But why did Poole fall so low in the draft, in your opinion? I from my experience with this team the last 10 plus years, they clearly prefer their draft picks to have a decent amount of college experience. Most of the players they pick, at least until this most recent draft, had 2-3 years minimum, right? Playing college ball. I mean, Steph and Klay were 3-year players. Draymond was a 4-year player. Looney, I think, was 3. Don't quote me on that. Maybe even 4, and so forth. But and Kuminga and Moody were exceptions this year. But Jordan Poole, at least from my impression, could have used one more year of college ball, and maybe that's why he fell all the way to the 28th pick. Why did he fall that far, and what do you think the Warriors saw in picking him?
So I don't necessarily look at it as him falling to 28. I look at it as him rising to 28, because I remember doing, I was getting ready to do like a Warriors draft show, and I checked 5 mock drafts. He was on 2 of them as one of the top 60 guys. The other 3, he wasn't even listed. And the the 2 drafts that he was listed in, he was like 43rd to 45th. And so I remember like we got knowledge that the pick was coming in and it was going to be Jordan Poole like maybe 30 seconds before like it was announced. And like a PR guy came over and like flipped our like they gave us this great draft guide on everyone who was draft eligible or who could be picked. And they turned the page to Poole. And I'm thinking, we're drafting this guy 28. Like most people don't even think he's going to be drafted. And the thing was, I remember after that rookie season, people were saying, well, they could have drafted Pascal in the first round. And like Pascal kind of played more like the first round pick and Poole was more kind of like the second round pick. And that's kind of like Pascal was like kind of thought to be a late first round guy. Poole was thought to be a mid to nothing second round guy. And they kind of flipped places where they drafted them. So I kind of see it as like he raised his stock. And I was reading something like he didn't even shoot it that great in the Golden State workouts. But like when they, I forget which article this was, but when they watched him work out, they saw that not only could he shoot, but he could dribble and pass. And he was kind of like a triple threat guy where if it all came together. And it's definitely worth the risk at number 28, late first round pick. You're not expecting these guys to have the career trajectory that Jordan Poole appears to be having. Like if he puts it all together, wow. Because I mean, you look at his college stats, he averaged 9.4 points per game for his 2-year Michigan career. All right. I mean, fewer possessions, you can't say. But 12.8 per game his sophomore year. I just checked this up as you were asking the question. I mean, yeah, the stats didn't scream first round pick. And so I was shocked a little bit the day. I was a little surprised that he actually went in the first round. And I mean, and now, I mean, the draft room for that pick is looking like geniuses for taking Poole at that spot.
It's incredible. And that's even more fascinating that he actually was picked higher. It's so that you're saying that the Warriors took a gamble at that point.
Almost. I mean, yeah, like, when three of the 5 mock drafts that I checked didn't even have him in the top 60 and the other 2 had him in the mid to low 40s. And who knows what like the actual draft boards were like in the NBA kind of right. War rooms. They could have been totally different. So, but I wasn't expecting it just based off those projections for him to be a late first round pick, but they got a ton of value out of it.
Oh my God. I mean, they struck gold with that kid. And look, man, I mean, if there's one thing that I think we can safely assume is that Jordan Poole ate his Built Bars and now he's one of a rising star in the NBA. Those Built Bars are delicious. I just ordered a pack for Rick Barry. The Hall of Famer is going to give me his feedback soon. I can't remember. I'm so sorry for forgetting. Have you had Built Bars, Kevin?
I have not. I am waiting on my pack.
All right, I'll work on that for sure. These are tasty protein bars. They're relatively healthy. I always endorse the fact that if I'm feeling hungry and I want something that's going to be light yet filling, these Built Bars are the way to go, simply because, again, they're not packed with calories. You only get 130 calories for each one, whereas most candy bars have 240, but they're light on sugar, which is a complete toxin for your body. They only have 4 grams of sugar for each Built Bar, whereas your average candy bar has 30 grams of sugar. And what makes me feel full and content after eating a Built Bar is that 17 grams of protein that's included. They got amazing flavors: mint brownie, coconut almond, all sorts of these Built Bars called Puffs that are marshmallowy flavored with a lot of flavors there to choose from. And my favorite, of course, the cookies and cream. And the best part, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. So go to built.com, use the promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. Again, the promo code is LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. And so is Kevin Danna. He's free and available on Twitter at Kevo408. Here's my next stumper of a question for you.
All
And
right,
maybe you can
let's
answer
do
this,
it.
maybe not. There's a huge debate about what the new nickname is for this amazing triumvirate of Steph, the Poole Party, and Klay. And to a greater extent, when Draymond's in the lineup, plus whoever the fifth person is, whether it's Wiggins, whether it's Otto Porter Jr., whether it's Iguodala. My question to you is, how do you stop that?
Yeah, it's very tough to stop that. The Nuggets haven't stopped it. They have an offensive rating now. This is a very small sample size of 11 minutes, but a 204.3 points per 100 possessions, which is incredible.
Ooh,
And their
yes, that is.
defensive rating is 75. I mean, obviously you can't play that lineup for 48 minutes, and they've outscored Denver
Right.
47-18. But when you have to play Nikola Jokić as much as the Nuggets do, and you're just kind of getting him out in space and making him run now, I think he probably is a little bit of a better athlete than people will give him credit for when they just take a look at his body type. That being said, it's a huge ask for Nikola Jokić. And I remember watching game one, like 2 minutes to go in the third quarter, Doris Burke, as Jokić is at the line, saying, he's gassed. Look at him. He was huffing and puffing. And like those minutes take a serious toll on him. And if you can kind of just mitigate a little bit what he can do offensively, which the Warriors have more than done with that lineup, if you're only giving up 18 points in 11 minutes, I mean, the other way, they appear unstoppable. Now, they're not going to hit shots at the clip that they are every time they're on the floor like that, but the game has flipped in each of the first two games when that new, what you want to call them, the Super Splash Brothers, the new.
What are you liking? Yeah, what are you liking? I'm kind of done playing this whole game. It's silly. I feel like organically it's gonna figure itself out. But yeah, what do you like though? What's your favorite nickname?
Super Splash Brothers, Fast Five. I was doing Warriors Roundtable last night. Someone suggested Splash Money Records. I like that one. So yeah, I mean, who knows? Like, you can't just force a nickname on these things, right?
Exactly.
So it'll if it happens, it happens. If not, like, they're still gonna kick ass when they're out on the court. So
Absolutely,
whether there's
man.
a nickname or not.
No, and you bring up a great point as well, which is that in both game one and game two, the Warriors were either tied or trailing before this new splash trio, the splash party, whatever you're calling it, before they're together on the floor. And in both these games in the second quarter is when those three, Steph, Klay, and the Poole Party, are together, they're just blowing the Nuggets out. It suddenly just gets completely carried away in the Warriors' favor. And I'm fascinated to see what the better defensive teams are going to scheme for this, because Mike Malone, to me, is a brilliant coach. And if he was going to scheme and figure this thing out, I feel like he would have done it in game two. And instead, what we saw was a sideline where players are fighting each other, and Mike Malone making public comments about them possibly getting swept if they don't stop this happening. And the Warriors, it is another fascinating note. They're the only remaining undefeated team in the Western Conference. Who would have picked that beside, people like us who actually know this team? What are you seeing? What are you predicting for the remainder of the series? And give us your thoughts on the Grizzlies and Timberwolves, which is that series is tied 1-1. The Warriors, if they pull this series out, because you're right, anything could still happen. I'm not ready to just proclaim it's over yet. But let's say they do, the trend continues and the Warriors win this series. How are you feeling about those two teams? Because they look considerably tougher than the Nuggets.
They definitely look tougher, and the Warriors had their struggles with both of those teams this year. To answer your first question, I do kind of think that the post game comments to the media that the Nuggets are making, it's kind of like playing possum a little bit. Like, let them think that we're disheveled and discombobulated and we're about to rip each other's throats out. Which I mean, not that it looked like they were going to rip each other's throats out, but Barton and DeMarcus Cousins weren't making plans to eat at Miller and Lux right next to Jay Sunner after the game in that little sideline kerfuffle or whatever you want to call it. I don't think the media comments mean a whole lot. I do think that it's kind of one of the cliches of postseason basketball, right? That role players play a lot better at home than they do on the road.
True.
And so I expect Aaron Gordon to not shoot 32% at Ball Arena like he did at Chase Center. A shout out to the Gordon family. His older brother Drew, I told this story on the radio yesterday, has dunked on me twice personally in pickup games in San Jose. I'm a big fan of Drew Gordon and Aaron Gordon. Good people, good family. I don't really know Aaron. I do know Drew a little bit because he's closer to me in age. I know his wife well, who was in broadcasting. She's really cool.
Wait, so the Gordon family, they're Bay Area natives? I didn't know that.
San Jose, baby.
Wow.
Midi high school. So, and I went to Bellarmine, so they were in my same league. And I'm 3 years older than Drew, so his freshman year was my senior year.
Nice.
His freshman year playing, I was doing stats for the basketball team. I was not playing. Let me make that abundantly clear.
My high school team was so good. They made it to the state finals that my senior year I was actually doing the play-by-play for whatever you call a high school broadcast. So anyways, I digress. Go ahead, please. I'm sorry.
But I expect Aaron Gordon to be a lot better in Denver. I expect now Will Barton's had 2 pretty solid games, didn't shoot it well in game 2, but did have a double-double. Barton's going to be lethal. Monte Morris is going to be lethal. Bones Highlands, I think, scored double figures in both games. At least 12 in game 2. I expect him to even raise his level of play. I think he's a very solid rookie. Nice late first round selection for Denver. So those guys, even though they don't have, and it's huge not having Jamal Murray and Michael Porter, I guess there's like a 1% chance that MPJ plays in this series or something, but they're running out of time to bring him back. Even though they don't have 2 of their 3 best players, I do expect game 3 to be a serious fight. And
agreed.
And if they get game 3, then game 4 is going to be tough. I could see if the Warriors win game 3, maybe the Warriors can kind of pounce on them in game 4 like they did in the 2017 first round against Portland. That game 4 was just a barrage of threes in the first quarter, and the Blazers just didn't have a chance.
I love it. And what are you thinking about the Timberwolves and the Grizzlies?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I get so sidetracked with one question.
That's all right. You know what's funny? I brought this up yesterday with Brian Witt, and same thing happened. We both forgot that the question was even raised. Yeah. But I remember this time. Yeah, what do you think is going to happen there?
All right. So I think, maybe Celtics Nets is the most intriguing first round series, but I think Timberwolves, Grizzlies Timberwolves is the most fun first round series. Like watching Ja Morant and Anthony Edwards and their fathers kind of have this friendly trash talk on the sidelines. I love the Timberwolves have my kind of players. Naz Reid and Jared Vanderbilt, and especially Jared Vanderbilt, are probably 2 of my 20 favorite players to watch in the NBA. Jared Vanderbilt, ball so hard university product, just how hard he plays, crashing the offensive glass. I'm a big fan that Jordan McLaughlin was a G League killer, so I'm a fan of his as well. And then just Memphis, how brash and cocky and confident they are. I love it. Zaire Williams, a Stanford guy, so I got to shout him out. And he's been he's done a lot better this year than I thought he would. He was really key for them when Dylan Brooks was out. He stepped into the starting lineup, and his 3-point shot seems to be coming along, even though he's hitting it at kind of a low 30s rate. And Ja Morant's one of the 5 most exciting guys, I think, to watch in the NBA, and I don't think he's 5. So I think I really like that series. I think that could go 6. I think it's a 6.5 game series. I do think Memphis pulls it out, even though Minnesota got game 1 and they do control the series since they now have home court. But, with playoff inexperience for the Minnesota Timberwolves and Memphis not having a whole lot more, I do think that the Grizzlies can take at least 1 in Minnesota here in games 3 and 4. So I think it's going to be a very fun series to watch. I think game 3 is going to be a war.
I wholeheartily agree with you. In my opinion, the Grizzlies can either just win the next 3 and close the series out in 5, or it could go 7 where they split these next 2 and then just goes back to back with the home courts. Just a year ago, the Grizzlies were in a similar position to where the Timberwolves are now.
Yep.
Where, they beat the Warriors, unfortunately. And then, they won their first game, I believe, against the Jazz.
Before game 1.
Before losing the rest of this. And was it the Jazz I think it was the Jazz, right?
It was the Jazz. Yep.
It was the Jazz. Okay. And I see that role. I see a lot of similarities there, except maybe the Timberwolves might be better. But regardless, I think if you're a member of Dub Nation, you want that series to go as long as possible, because in theory, if the Warriors win games 3 and 4, we could be looking at a 10-day layoff.
Yeah.
which for a guy like Stephen Curry would be amazing. And I even think for Draymond Green too, since he's really going to be the make or break difference when it comes to defending these bigger players. Yeah, so look, this is fun, man. I mean, this is my favorite time of year when it comes to sports. You get NBA on TNT every night, pretty much. I mean, there's nights
Yep.
off here and there. You got playoff basketball all the time, starting at 4:30 p.m. Pacific time, if not earlier. I'm stoked. I don't know about you, but this is where it's at for a sports fan, and especially with the Warriors pushing it like this. My lord, this is some good stuff. Anything you want to promote before we wrap things up, man? I mean, you got the G League is over for the year. How'd the Warriors, the Santa Cruz Warriors do? I'm sorry for not keeping track.
Yeah, no problem. So it was probably the most miraculous playoff clinching scenario I have seen in 30 years of watching sports. Basically, the Warriors were 10-17 with 5 games to go, and they were 12th out of 13 in the Western Conference. They need to finish in the top 6. They needed to win out, and the 6 teams above them need to go a combined 9-25. And when you only play teams in your conference, like that makes it that much more like statistically impossible. And they also, like, in those 9 wins, like the wins that happened needed to be against certain teams. And like it all happened and they made the playoffs. I've literally never seen anything like it. I gave up on the season 3 weeks before it ended because I looked at the stands like there's no chance in hell this team's making the playoffs. But, they're second to last, 5 games left. All right, yeah, just want to finish with some good mojo. And they end up making the freaking playoffs. It was a hell of a finish to the year. They lost in the first round to the South Bay Lakers, which is obviously the LA Lakers G League team, which there's something about kind of playing in like a sardine can of a gym where it's really cramped, where like the home team can kind of use that to its advantage. And you wouldn't see this in the NBA, but I've seen this in the G League a few times, like the Bakersfield Jam and the Lakers. They've played in the Lakers practice facility. It's a new practice facility now, but they've been doing it for most of their existence after they played in Staples Center their first few years. And so like it can feel like the other team's playing downhill on you, and South Bay's got the weapons to do it. And Santa Cruz had a few key guys injured. LJ Figueroa had gotten hurt, who'd been really good for them. Eli Pemberton had gotten hurt. Jerome Robinson, I can't remember. I think Jerome Robinson played in that game, but didn't play in a previous game. He was a former lottery pick, and it was great to get Moody and Chioza, but they hadn't played with those guys in a while, and it's kind of tough to like create that chemistry like with the snap of a finger. So it was a competitive loss, 134-123. And the Rio Grande Valley Vipers won the G League title this year for the 4th time in their team history.
Beautiful. And that sounds like it does sound miraculous that they actually made it to the playoffs. And look, the Lakers got to have something to be happy for. So I guess, the fact that they beat the Warriors in the G League, good for you. Do you think Kuminga and Moody are going to play in the postseason? Do you think they'll actually fit somewhere in the rotation? Clearly, it's not going to be in this series, but against the Grizzlies, against, whoever else they might face, I feel like the physicality, the size, the athleticism could be used and welcomed from Kuminga and Moody. Do you think they're going to play in as rotation members?
I could see that for sure, and maybe not for a full series, but for spot minutes here and there. I remember Jacob Evans, his rookie year, in like games 3 or 4, one of those two in Portland, like played some pretty damn good defense on Damian Lillard for like the end of the first half. And like it just like, I forget who was in foul trouble, but like they needed Jacob Evans to D up for like 3 or 4 minutes, and he did like a commendable job of it. Jacob Evans was on the Santa Cruz Warriors this year. Shout out to Jacob. So yeah, like, and Jacob Evans had much fewer rotation minutes in the regular season than either Moody or Kuminga this year. So I definitely think it's possible. I do think kind of like that start of the second quarter stint for Kuminga is maybe the most likely scenario. I thought maybe when Andre Iguodala missed game 2, that maybe a couple of those minutes would go to Kuminga. Obviously, he didn't come in until garbage time. But just because they haven't played games 1 or 2, maybe they don't get rotation minutes this series. I definitely could see a future where they have rotation minutes in future series. It maybe, I wouldn't say 12 to 15 minutes a game, but maybe like 6 to 8 minutes a game. Like kind of like someone gets in foul trouble. We need you to play 3 or 4 minutes right here.
That's some great Jacob Evans third knowledge, a fellow number 28 pick. Still some hope for him. I wouldn't rule him out yet in terms of the long-term plans, but maybe not, but who knows? great knowledge. Again, the Warriors play the Nuggets tonight, game 3. Game 4 is going to be Sunday. There's some crazy breaks here, which I think are incredibly beneficial for a Warriors team that wants Stephen Curry to be 100%, who wants Draymond to be rested for each of these games, given the heavy assignments he's taking on. And I my prediction was 5. I could still see it going 5. I could easily see the Nuggets winning one of these 2, but if they swept, would not surprise me in the least bit. Dude, it's always a pleasure, man. I'm going to bring you back on sooner if that's okay with you. I mean, I love having you on. I'll reach out to you sooner than this little gap we had. I think it was like 3 weeks, which is a record for Kevin Danna. So you expect more Kevin Danna appearances, viewers and listeners of Dub Nation. I will bring you on more regularly if you're interested. I always am, but it's always
interested.
You, of course.
Always interested.
Cool, man.
For sure.
Good stuff. And let's hope tomorrow's show is going to be recapping yet another victorious Warriors game. And let's hope we're talking 3-0, not 2-1. Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On NBA. From the first jump of the play-in tournament to the last possession of the finals, Locked On experts take you deep inside the playoffs with insight and analysis affecting all 30 teams. Always a pleasure, Kevin. You can follow Kevin Danna on Twitter at Kevo408. Thanks, brother.
Thanks so much for having me, Cyrus. I really appreciate it.
Of course, man. Pleasure is all mine. Thank you, everyone. Later.